Chris Philp. But you've got to admit something's going on. We've had this cascade of articles from Boris Johnson. We had the European Research Group yesterday holding a public meeting, holding another public meeting today. I mean, is there a real sort of effort to undermine Mrs May going on within the Tory party?
Well, look, I mean, you often hear leadership rumbles. These are nothing like as loud as the ones that have been happening in the Labour Party over the last couple of years. So I don't think it's a serious issue. And I think the vast majority of Conservative MPs, as your piece said, just want us to get on with delivering Brexit for the British public in a pragmatic and sensible way. And detonating a leadership contest at the critical point, the critical juncture, in the most important negotiation this country has undertaken for decades, clearly would not be a very sensible thing to do. So I think even a large number of people who you would sort of term as ERG Conservatives would agree with that analysis. They want to deliver a decent Brexit as well, just like all of us do, and a leadership contest would actually inhibit and frustrate that.
I mean, obviously no one knows except for the chairman of the 1922 committee, but what's your feeling? I mean, people are saying that perhaps 36 of the 48 letters needed have gone in.
It's a surprisingly specific number. I mean, as you say, no one knows. It's just speculation. I certainly don't bump into MPs, my colleagues in Westminster, saying that they've written letters. So, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue. There isn't a leadership contest. There shouldn't be a leadership contest, and I certainly don't expect there to be one. We should back the Prime Minister to get on and deliver Brexit for the British people.
But you see, that seems to be the problem, because whether or not people are calling for Mrs May to go, she, had the cabinet meeting at Chequers. She came up with the Chequers proposals, and yet Conservatives on both sides, both Remainers and strong Brexiteers, attacked Chequers, and we get people saying, well, the proposals are dead.
Well, look, I mean, of course you get, on a topic like this, a contentious topic which divides the country, it divides Parliament, and it obviously divides some parties as well. You get a range of opinions. And no, there is no proposal. There does not exist a proposal which would cause everyone to turn around and say, this is fantastic, we all completely agree with it. So it's to be expected. You get voices on either side of the debate. I think Chequers represents strikes the right balance. It keeps us keeps products flowing freely across borders, but it stops us paying all the money. It ends unlimited free movement. It ends the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice directly in the UK. It delivers all of those really important things. So I think it is something that the Conservative Party, but actually all parties in Parliament who have our national interest at heart, can and should and will get behind when it comes to the crunch to vote on it.
And what do you think is the answer on this border question? I mean, if Britain is out of the customs union and the single market, there's going to have to be a border.
Well, no, but the whole point about the Chequers Agreement is that it means you don't have to have a border either in Northern Ireland or at Dover or Felixstowe or the other ports, because you've got this facilitated customs arrangement where, because we're collecting the relevant tariff at our external border, you then don't, and we're critically agreeing to adhere to European standards on products and agri-foods. You don't need any border, not even a remote border, when it comes to the UK-EU border. So it's not an issue with Chequers fixes it. Now, if we're in a CETA plus free trade world, if, for example, the European Union unreasonably rejected Chequers, then you're into the sort of trade facilitation.
I mean, Rees-Mogg says that was not leaving the European Union. That's not what people voted for.
Well, look, I mean, I love Chequers. Consider him to be a friend, and I love him dearly. But I think on that point, I just don't agree. I think, as I said a moment ago, Chequers gets us, out of the common fisheries policy, out of the common agricultural policy. It ends the days of sending large amounts of money to the European Union. It ends free movement of people. It delivers all of those things that people voted for. Yes, we are going to adhere to European product safety standards on cars. But to be quite honest, as a British MP, I have no plans to vote to make our car safety standards any less safe. So that's a concession I'm happy with.
See, I've got to ask you about this, because even if, let's suppose Mrs May pursues Chequers, she gets some kind of a Chequers-style agreement, there just aren't the votes in Parliament to get it passed in that meaningful vote, are there?
Well, I don't agree. I mean, we have, with the DUP, we do have a majority. We got through that very close vote back in July, if you remember, on the Stephen Hammond amendment saying we should stay in a customs union. We won that by 6 votes, although Vince Cable forgot to turn up because he was having dinner somewhere else. So we have won those very difficult votes. And I think when it comes to the crunch, and the choice is either the Chequers deal or some pretty bad alternative, bad and unknown alternative, we'll find that colleagues just think very carefully about that. The biggest risk, I think, actually to the Chequers deal doesn't come from the British Parliament. It comes from the European Union. We'll know a little bit more at the Salzburg Council in a couple of weeks. I think it's next week, actually, week or two's time.
Yeah, 20th.
20th. But, the European Union, if they're reasonable and pragmatic, will adopt Chequers, but they may unreasonably choose not to, and then we're obviously into different territory.
Ms. Philp, thank you very much indeed.